So what is the biggest noticeable change that I notice now that I'm off HRT? And you see I'm actually off it. My testosterone levels are...
What's up guys, Derek, moreplates.com. Today we're going to be reacting to Greg Doucette, again, the How I Feel Off HRT Bloodwork analysis. So obviously the highly anticipated Bloodwork results, where he essentially was instructed to come off of his HRT entirely in order to expedite the decalcification of his tricep tendon to heal his long-standing injury, which, you know, obviously has been fairly controversial, with a lot of people thinking it's, you know, seems like a contradictory approach to injury resolvement. And then some people, you know, think he's lying and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, we did this big deep dive analysis in my last video. Greg's come out and explained it himself. So in this one, we're just gonna be going over the blood work. And like, obviously, if you don't believe him, I think he's fine with that at this point, because there's a lot of people who think he's trying to circumvent, you know, lowering his dose and blah, 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 and all this kind of shit. But we're gonna be going over the blood work in particular. It's a 17-minute video, so you can imagine with my commentary, this could end up being like a fucking 60-minute video. So I'm gonna jump around a little bit. Bear with me.
Coach Greg, and today I'm going to explain how do I feel now that my testosterone levels are crashed and I'm off HRT. Going to show you the various blood work forms that I have to show you where the numbers are, explain what is the difference that I feel from being off HRT as opposed to when I was on HRT. As you know, I've abused PDs, I've done steroid cycles in the past, but I've been on testosterone only for over a year. How does it feel to now suddenly come off and crash your testosterone levels? I ended my last cycle in November after competing in the Niagara Falls Pro Show, where I did a minor steroid cycle, very, very small compared to what I did in the past, but still it was a cycle. I was competing in a competition, but since then, 140 milligrams of test a week. Did this blood work a couple weeks after that show, and here's the results. So you must have been thinking I was blasting a huge cycle and that all my blood work would be in a mess, because let's face it, this is only a few weeks later. Well, let's see. Cholesterol, HDL ratio, 3:1, great, perfectly healthy. ALT, or liver enzymes, normal. So all health markers that they could test you for, all of them, from cholesterol to liver enzymes, everything, all normal. Cholesterol, HDL ratio, 3:1, great, perfectly healthy. ALT, or liver enzymes, normal.
See, it's kind of interesting because some of this stuff, like, first of all, it's funny because I actually live in Canada, but I'm so much less familiar with Canadian reference ranges and units of measurement that it's like almost foreign to me to look at this shit. So the EGFR over 90 looks great, considering he's coming off of a cycle. Like, it doesn't even measure above 90. So, you know, could be, who knows how good, you know, that's an exceptional result, especially coming off of a big blast. On the ALT, in a lot of lab corps in the States and whatnot, this would be like a little bit high, like right over the reference range. So it's interesting. In Canada, they put it up to 54 instead of in the lower 40s. But again, you know, this is coming off of a blast supposedly, so that's pretty fucking good.
So all health markers that they could test you for, all of them, from cholesterol to liver enzymes.
Let's see. So we have, so this triglyceride result, 1.8 millimoles per liter. This is like, definitely, you know, need to get that in check. It's not actually, you know, optimal, but again, and the HDL, you know, it's in millimoles per liter. If that was milligrams per deciliter in US metrics, that would be like in the 40s, I believe. So this is like it's not bad, dude. Like, if this was actually your baseline, I might be like, you know, look at your diet, look at whatever you're using. But this is in the context of a contest blast. And I'm sure he was using orals of some sort, which have a significant deleterious impact on lipid parameters and whatnot. So the fact that he even has an in-range HDL after a show, like, you know, some labs will have a HDL over 40, shows you're like, okay. And that's kind of what this is. That's why it's showing normal. A lot of labs would show that if you're under 60, you're not optimal though. But again, this is in the context of coming off of a blast. So yeah, this is pretty fucking good.
everything all normal, despite being on a steroid cycle, but it was a small one. Back in the past, when I'd done larger cycles, like when I was competing to earn my pro card, in comparison, when I was doing abusive cycles, including tren and various orals, a lot of it was a mess. My cholesterol wasn't good. HDL-LDL ratio wasn't good.
Okay, maybe he wasn't using orals then for the most recent show. But again, he used super physiological amounts of something. So the fact that anything is even like remotely close to in range is, you know, quite good. And one thing to note too, before he goes on, is one thing that no one really talks about that should be very, very much acknowledged is the fact that bodybuilding genetics aren't just your ability to grow muscle, your muscle insertions, etc. It's also how well you can tolerate drugs as well as food. So this is like an example of somebody who's responding well to the drugs, but also can tolerate them without significant deleterious impacts to his health. So the fact that you can use even like a minor blast to prep for a show and have, even if it's by Canadian reference ranges, have everything in the reference range. Like, I know some guys who can't even keep their shit in the reference range on nothing. So like that's an example of not only having genetics for your literal muscle accrual and whatnot, but you also have to consider genetics when you are getting into bodybuilding and how tolerable your body is. And that is something no one thinks of, because it is literally going to dictate your longevity in the sport too. If you can't tolerate the shit, no matter how good your genetics are over here in the muscle building, the insertions, the structure, the blah, 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 if your body just fucking sucks at dealing with drugs and dealing with food and dealing with the lifestyle that comes with bodybuilding, it's probably not the sport for you.
Liver enzymes elevated, the typical problems of a bodybuilder. But fortunate enough for me, kidneys never were a problem. My last cycle, very minor, and so no real issues were to be seen. So
yeah, one thing that's good is the fact that his EGFR is good, even in spite of the fact that they're using creatinine calculated estimated glomerular filtration rate. I always have a problem saying that. Glomerular filtration rate. So in Canada, good fucking luck getting a cystatin C. Like, they're gonna send you, literally you'll have to get a referral to a nephrologist that you'll have to wait 6 months to see in order to get a cystatin C, because most doctors don't even know what the fuck it is. So if you have, you know, a crashed EGFR in Canada, definitely have to, like, you're probably gonna have to go for like an ultrasound before you even get a cystatin C. That's how difficult it is to get just like proper blood work in Canada sometimes, unfortunately. So anyways, the fact that he is so muscle bound, has a high protein diet, etc., and still has a like exceptional EGFR, like, just goes to show how tolerable this guy is of drugs. Because, you know, I've seen guys who are just on TRT, who are on barely anything, guys in their mid-20s who have EGFRs under 60 because it's based on creatinine rather than based on a cystatin C. So even on the cystatin C, or on the creatinine calculated EGFR, he still has these numbers.
So what were my testosterone levels at on 140 milligrams of test a week? Well, on the Canadian scale, it was 27.5 nanomoles per liter. In the United States, that's equivalent to somewhere in the mid 700s nanograms per deciliter. High normal. Not crazy high, just high normal. Somewhere in the middle, a happy place. That's where I was. However, my bioavailable testosterone was over double normal, and that's because my SHBG, well, that's below the normal range, but this is quite common amongst people taking testosterone exogenously. I continued to do the same thing until about 6 weeks ago, at which time I stopped doing my testosterone. Got my blood work a few weeks later, and here are the results.
And by the way, before we get into the results, this is why I often talk about how TRT is not equal to normal production. Even if you have a 750 total production, nanograms per deciliter, if your SHBG is, you know, crashed, you're going to have a disproportionate amount of freely circulating androgens that would otherwise be bound to binding globulin. So this is where it's not, you know, it's not even comparable at the end of the day. Natural versus, oh, I have a 700 and it's natural versus a guy who's injecting it to get the 700. Like, it's night and day difference. And then obviously combined with the fact that you're maintaining it chronically throughout the day without having any dips, peaks, etc., based on your diet, based on your lifestyle, based on your sleep hygiene, etc. But anyways, I just want to give that context before we go any further, because a lot of people wonder, how the fuck could you maintain this much muscle mass that Greg has on 140 milligrams a week? You only have, you know, a 700 and something nanogram per deciliter test level. How is it possible? This is why the low SHBG and the disproportionately high free testosterone. Now, that's not necessarily, a healthy thing to have a SHBG in the single digits all the time. You're going to have higher adrenergic signaling. Your sympathetic nervous tone is going to be, redlined far more often. It's probably not the healthiest thing long term, but you are certainly going to have and retain more muscle, gain more muscle, etc., because you have more freely circulating androgens to get to the androgen receptor. And yeah, that is a very common thing you see with guys on TRT. And typically when you see an SHBG that's that low, you would typically benefit from, or talking to your doctor about this, increasing your administration frequency. There is a theory that you may end up hyper excreting this shit. When you have such a low SHBG, you have no regulating mechanism to actually determine when testosterone gets delivered to target tissues. Rather, you just have a geyser of free hormones going around. So when you have such a low SHBG, not only does bolus shots, like once a week, once every however frequently you do it, the less frequent you do it, the harder you're gonna drive down your SHBG. So if you increase your injection frequency and lower your overall dose per shot, even if it's the same weekly androgen burden, you can actually lessen that burden of androgen-induced SHBG suppression to some extent and have a more stable blood serum concentration level of freely circulating androgens in your body. And it's just, that's a practice that you may want to discuss with your endocrinologist, doctor, HRT clinic, whatever. If you are somebody who has a SHBG, below, even 20, I would definitely be looking at that.
Everything was normal. Cholesterol, liver enzymes, ALT, all of it normal. Of course it was. It wasn't like I was blasting tren or using anything, not doing SARMs, nothing. So what exactly wasn't normal? My testosterone levels. Of course they were low. I stopped taking testosterone and my body's not producing it. So the test numbers went way down. How far down? Well, on the Canadian scale, it's 3.2, which is about 85 to 90 nanomoles per deciliter, okay? Under 100. Not as bad as Isaiah Miranda's 21 nanograms per deciliter, but not very good now, is it? But listen, it probably hadn't quite bottomed out at this point because I'd been doing test and enthate. It would have slowly gotten out of my system. Every half-life, it's going to be lower and lower. Perhaps it wasn't bottomed out.
Notice how his SHBG actually increased though. So if you look at the blood test results, you can see that it's up to 17.7 now, whereas before it was in the single digits. The reason being, your body's freaking the fuck out because it is literally crashing your hormones. So it's producing binding globulin to try and preserve the testosterone. This is why, it actually makes logical sense. If you're using a super physiological amount of androgens in one shot, your body recognizes, why would I need these binding globulins in order to preserve the testosterone, to preserve these sex hormones when there's an overabundance of it? It just makes no logical sense. Whereas when they're being literally fucking disintegrated out of your body, where you have no more incoming testosterone, all of a sudden your body's like, holy shit, we need to preserve some of this. And the binding globulin starts to increase a bit. And this is even in the absence of estrogen, which typically is one of the main factors that drives up SHBG. Anyways, I thought that was just interesting to point out.
What about the bioavailable testosterone? The testosterone that you can actually use? Because with just one number, it doesn't really paint the whole story. My bioavailable testosterone, the testosterone you can use is 0.87 nanomoles per liter, or around 25 nanograms per deciliter on the United States chart.
By the way, if you don't know the difference between bioavailable testosterone and free testosterone, it's simply the amount of testosterone bound to albumin as well as free testosterone. So it's added together as bioavailable, whereas total testosterone is literally all the testosterone in your body.
That's about 1/3 of the bottom end of normal.
And when I say in your body, I mean in the blood.
So let's just say it's extremely low, shitty, horrible. So my testosterone levels are very, very low. What about sex hormone binding globulin?
I commend Greg on his energy with these test levels. I can just imagine how he feels.
That's actually 17.7, which is in the normal range. It's on the lower end, but it's in the lower end of the normal range. So everything except for my testosterone levels are normal. So because I went off HRT, my body had been used to getting testosterone exogenously. It no longer was making testosterone my own. So therefore, the number kept going lower and lower. So my doctor said, let's get some more blood work. Let's see what happens in a couple weeks. So here's the newest results, the results I went and picked up today. Let's start by the boring stuff. ALT 45, which is in the normal range. The liver enzymes, albumin normal. Estradiol 49, it's in the normal range.
Okay, so estradiol being 49 what though? Is that I don't even remember what the fuck Canada uses. Is that picomoles per liter or something? I don't know, but I would highly doubt his estrogen is. The problem with estrogen reference ranges is often they'll say you're normal if you're less than a certain amount, but there's no low end. It's like if you're less than this, you're fine, which makes no fucking sense. You could have like 0 and they would tell you you're healthy, which is obviously not the case. So if you have low testosterone, the likelihood is high that you'll also have low estrogen. But anyways, that's, besides the point. Obviously, the sex hormones in general are going to be low right now. That's an expected outcome.
Everything is normal so far. And this is what you really want to know. What about my testosterone levels? They're still low. Of course they're low. I'm off HRT. It's only...
Yeah, so here we go. Estradiol, 49 picomoles per liter. So, or 49 picomoles per liter, whereas for males, 40 to 162 is normal according to Canada. Okay, so according to the Units Lab conversion calculator, picomoles per liter 49 is equal to 13.35 picograms per milliliter, which is, like maybe for like most people with if you have a natural testosterone production this low of a estrogen level, like obviously it would be a worrying thing. But for Greg, obviously low test levels equates to the low estrogen. The fact that it's not clinically low in Canada, it's kind of odd that 13 would be considered normal, but it looks like there goes down to 40, which like you're in the fucking single digits for estrogen. I would not consider that normal, but the reference ranges in Canada are a little bit wonky in some scenarios. Like their total T goes up to like fucking 850 in some cases. Like it's ridiculous.
It's been about 6 weeks. My testosterone levels on the Canadian scale are at 4, and that's about 110 nanograms per deciliter, something like that. Not even close to 250, if that's normal, 350, 450, whatever you want to consider to be normal. Used to be in the 700s, and now I'm in the low 100s. So how do you think I feel?
Shitty.
Not amazing. Not like Superman. Do I look good? Well, I almost look kind of arguably better. I look leaner because since I stopped the testosterone, I find my body's holding less water. I feel like I'm leaner, like I'm drier. Okay? Water, testosterone causes water retention. And when I was taking 140 milligrams a week, I wasn't taking a Arimidex with that. I didn't care about estradiol. That's normal. I'm on HRT or TRT. I'm just replacing what my body should be making. I don't see the need to take 100 different medications just because I'm trying to replace my testosterone.
Yeah, like if your body composition is dialed in, your diet's dialed in, your exercise is dialed in, your sleep hygiene's dialed in, you should not need an AI with actual therapeutic replacement unless you have genetic polymorphisms that inhibit estrogen metabolism or some sort of, weird outlying factor that influences your ability to clear this shit out of your system, or you have enhanced, sensitivity, estrogen receptor density, whatever the fuck. Some weird scenario, but most people should not need an AI just to run therapeutic TRT like he's saying.
The testosterone dose, it's not high. It was 140 milligrams. For me, it's not high. It produced something in the 700s. Maybe for you, you take 140 and it's 1500. Maybe that's too high. You have to ask your own doctor. For me, 140 is normal for me. Don't need a Arimidex. Estrogen's not out of whack, but it still causes a little bit of water retention, despite the fact that my testosterone dose was not too high. So what is the biggest noticeable change that I notice now that I'm off HRT? And you see I'm actually off it. My testosterone levels are consistently way below normal. You can argue all you like that I'm lying, that I'm on growth hormone and all this stuff. If I was on it, I would tell you. I don't care. If I decide to take growth hormone, I'll tell you. I'll be like, hey guys, I'm going on GH. Let's see the results of that. I'll probably get views. I'd probably make more money.
One thing to note too is in Canada, they use, ECLIA methodology for detecting hormones. So if you're using like a primitive immunoassay in order to detect hormone levels in the body, you're likely going to cross detect other synthetic anabolics that are derived from testosterone. So if you're using, let's just say he was using another anabolic steroid to hold on to his muscle when he drops the TRT, you likely would have had a cross detection either in the estrogen value or the testosterone value, artificially inflating it into the natural territory. So like, unless he was using a SARM or some shit, which again, it's not like his lipids are crushed or anything. So it's again, pretty, you know, the evidence suggests that he's not using anything as far as I'm concerned.
More people probably tune in if I start a growth hormone cycle and said, let's watch Coach Greg do growth hormone.
And yeah, like the growth hormone, like how much of a difference would that make in your physique to hold on to the tissue when you have no testosterone? Like it would make absolutely no sense to crash your test to prove like intentionally and then take growth hormone and try and retain your muscle with the growth hormone and like somehow mislead people in the same process. Like it makes no sense. Like if he was on GH, you just fucking say he's on GH. It's not like you're gonna, if you come off TRT and you stay on a fuck ton of GH, I promise all of your muscle is still gonna fall off.
So it doesn't make sense that I'm just going to keep it a secret. I would literally do a video talking about why I'm taking it. Probably make more money. I'm not on growth hormone. Could easily do it. I'm not. I don't see the purpose. I don't need to do it. So what is the biggest change that I've noticed? I'm always freaking sore. Every day I wake up and tell my girlfriend, I'm so sore. And it's a joke because before I even say it, she's like, I know what you're going to say, but I still say it. Every day I'm sore. Every time I get on the bicycle to do a race or to warm up, it's sore. I'm starting and I'm like, wow, my legs are so sore. So my recovery is not as good as it was. Am I still training hard? Yes, of course I am. I'm in a race. I'm racing today. I've been racing all the time and I haven't slowed down. If anything, I've sped up. Guess
That's what a lot of people wonder too. Then they ask, like, what's it like being on anabolics? It's like one of the main things is soreness. Like you feel like you can do your next set sooner. You feel less. You don't get, you know, the brutal soreness for as long of a duration of time. You still can get sore, but I mean, all the recovery processes are just upregulated fairly significantly. So the fact that he's saying, like, this is a very expected outcome to be more sore once you have no androgen support.
Guess what? When you're on a bicycle and you lose weight, you write in, you lost weight. It actually calculates your weight and how much power you put compared to your weight is how fast your bike goes. So when you lose weight on a bicycle, you actually get faster. So even though testosterone could help you push out more watts, if you lose weight, it compensates for that. So being off testosterone hasn't slowed me down on the bike at all. In fact, maybe I'm arguably faster.
And this is, you know, people wonder, like, why would Lance Armstrong be taking testosterone? Why would any of these guys be taking testosterone? You have to understand it's within reason, though, and they're not trying to build a massive physique. They're trying to increase performance metrics, but within reason where they're not bogging down their performance. So if you're holding, you know, 200 pounds fucking shredded, you can imagine, and you're racing against guys who are, you know, whatever, like 50 pounds less than you or something, who also have the same androgen support, though, or, you know, a lesser amount depending on what they need in order to max out their hematology, whatever it is that they're trying to get out of it. It's only going to aid you in performance up to a point, and there's a reason why sprinters, bike racers, I was going to say cyclists, but like obviously that word is, you know, a fucking pun in this context, but these guys, they go out of their way to get the maximum performance benefits they can out of certain, you know, compounds, including androgens, but with a relative lack of increase in body weight. Once you start cranking your body weight up, the performance metrics relative to like what you're working against yourself, the seesaw starts to go a little bit more in the opposite direction. So there is a fine line, and it's not like you can just sauce your fucking face off and do this shit and it's going to just, you know, help you. Like Greg is extremely muscle bound. He found it, you know, he's saying he might even be better now, even when he has less muscle and less androgen. So you can just imagine what he would have if he was at an even lighter body weight with normal hormone levels.
I'm not sure. It's too hard to tell, but that's what's going on right now. So I definitely noticed that I'm way more sore, particularly in the legs. The legs they're just always sore. And when I go and do the same workout as I was doing before, I feel like my legs are more sore than had I been on HRT in the first place. So what am I doing about that? Well, right now I'm on a deload week, okay? Cat always trained harder than last time. You can try, but after a while, it doesn't seem to make sense. So if you ever get to a point where you feel overtrained, like you're just going too hard, you're one of those people, maybe 1 out of every 100 people that pushes too hard in the gym. You know the person. You know that person, the one that's just going harder than last time all the time. They're the animals. Most people in the gym, they train like pussies. And are we allowed to say pussy anymore? Yeah, most people train like pussies, and not a girl, like a pussy cat, like girls kitten and boys kitten. They don't train hard at all. But pussy cats, they don't train hard. They just sit around, okay? So they train like wimps, or whatever the terminology is for an insulting way to say somebody's not training harder than last time. They're training easy. They are training like they're going through the motions. Most people train going through the motions.
Okay, I'm not skipping this because I don't want to watch it. I'm just trying to cut. We're at 30 minutes on my recording. I want to cut down and get to the juicy parts. I'm only halfway through his video.
At being off HRT, I can't think anymore. I can't form a freaking sentence in a freaking video. Man, this sucks. So what was I saying? So let me put it to you this way. Everything in the downstairs still works as normal. It still works as required. So it's not horrible. Does that mean it's going to be like this forever? I already see the comments. I'm not on HRT, but it doesn't take a moron to know that somebody's going to be, oh, it's only been 6 weeks, and wait till 6 months, and 7 years, you're going to lose. I'm not saying that I'm not going to continue to lose muscle. I'm not saying this is it. I'm not saying the worst has come. I don't know. I'm just reporting on what's happened. What about sleep and fatigue? I find I'm more tired than before, and my sleep isn't quite as good as it was, but it's not horrible. To be honest, I feel pretty good. If I drink a cup of coffee, I'm feeling pretty good. If I drink some pre-workout, I can go to the gym and I can still train hard. Motivation, it's still there. So it's not that bad. It's not as good as it was, but it's not that bad. And you're thinking, well, how is this possible? You should have been this and you lost that. Listen, there is a big difference between going from 1,000 milligrams a week to nothing than 140 milligrams a week to nothing.
There's also a big difference between a guy with good genetics who is hitting his micronutrient intake and all that shit, going to nothing, and a guy who eats like dog shit, cranks his face off, has very bad genetics, takes a bunch of exotic compounds like progestins and whatnot, going to nothing. Huge difference in terms of recovery time, ability to recover in general, and again, this guy's tolerability of drugs related back to his recovery too. The ability to tolerate this shit in general is going to play a massive impact on your ability to recover natural processes the way they should be. Like in your mid 40s, a guy on TRT, like, he would not expect to maintain like any semblance of like normal function. Like, you would think he'd be a fucking disaster right now, but the fact that he's holding it together, I think, again, speaks to the genetic tolerance of drugs.
Very small drop off compared to 1,000 to nothing compared to 140 to nothing. So unlike the person that's doing 1,000 milligrams a week, I only see a small decline in muscle and strength in compared to if you're on 1,000 milligrams. Just think, if you're on an excessive amount of androgens and you suddenly stop them, all that boost is gone. But if you're only on a little bit, have as thin a skin as Coach Greg, because clearly it has to be only from growth hormone. Or not, and I'm not, so I know I'm right, so it's a pretty easy bet.
At any odds, for any amount of money, over any length of time, stretching from now into infinity.
I bet you $1 million I'm not on growth hormone. Does anyone want to take the bet against one of your dollars? Anyone who accepts that bet, you owe me $1. I'm the only one who knows that I'm right, and why would I lie? It's stupid. What about mental clarity? I mean, making this video, I'm in a mess, but does that mean it's because my HRT is low? I don't think so. I'm making this video and I'm stumbling on I'm making this video and I keep bumbling on my words. I'm making this video and I keep So I'm making this video and I keep stumbling on my words, and do I blame being off HRT? No, I've bumbled words plenty of times in the past. Get delicious tasting ice cream. Okay, let's get comprise your spread. Why do we actually? What? Wait till you see whatever. Wait till you see whatever. Wait till you see what else he says. And I've also, since being off HRT, done amazing videos like the one on Ryan Humiston. You guys watch that one? Non-stop, it was in a roll. Easy, no problem. So some days are good, some days are bad. I can't say being off HRT, I'm not productive anymore. I recorded 5 videos on Friday. Does that sound like somebody that can't work anymore? People, oh, it's my job and it's stress and I need HRT to do my job. No, you can still work. I mean, does it improve cognitive function? I don't know. It puts you in a positive mood. Am I in a bad mood? No, I feel pretty good most of the time. So despite being off HRT, I don't have suicidal thoughts and I still feel like a normal human being. I just feel less awesome than last time. When I was on HRT, I recovered better and I wasn't as sore and I felt a bit better. Everything was a bit better. Was it way better? No. I would argue if I stopped doing a massive cycle of test, trend, growth hormone to get 6 months, I don't. Yes, I felt better on it. I'm trying to see what happens to this tricep without it. What's going to happen in the future? I don't know. I have another appointment with my endocrinologist, but it's Canada. Who knows how heck freaking long it takes to get? 6 months maybe. I want to talk to the endocrinologist and say, do you agree with the sports doctor? Do you think that my testosterone level should be down? Should it be up? What are the negatives? What are the pros and cons? I want to know all this stuff, but I have to wait.
Yeah, it's annoying. You know, you can't just throw some money down and get your shit done, unfortunately, in Canada. Even my mom, I had to get her to a nephrologist regarding the EGFR thing I mentioned before. Getting a cystatin C and getting her ultrasound interpreted by another person that is highly qualified. And unfortunately, the wait times are fucking ridiculous, dude. So I don't know, hopefully he gets in soon because I can't even imagine walking around. Like, he's lucky that he's very, like I said, tolerable of drugs. A lot of guys I know in the, 100s of tests with low estrogen would be fucking brain dead. Not brain dead, but severe brain fog. So that's great that he can still function well and still make videos with high energy and whatnot. But I speculate that the conclusion will likely be get on a therapeutic replacement amount somewhere, maybe that keeps your free test high normal, which is your total test. Maybe that's in the mid normals as opposed to high normal. I'm not really sure, but, and then see what happens to the calcium deposition from there. I don't know though, because if he can function right now, like maybe you just see if you can tolerate it fully and maybe things start bouncing back. Like you never know. With genetic elites, like you never fucking know what the deal is. Like for all we know, his test, what if it bounces back? Like I don't know. I know Vigorous Steve recently did a PCT after many years on gear, and he's in his late 30s. He's not in his 40s like Greg, but he also has quite good genetics and has an exceptional diet model. So he was able to recover to the mid 500s, I believe, within not fast, but like relatively short order given his historical use of anabolics. So I don't know, it should be interesting to see. And, hopefully this is worth what he had to do, because this is obviously a last, like a very, very extreme measure that must be taken in order to actually see if there's going to be any improvement in the tricep. So anyways, that is the interpretation of the blood work. And I'm interested to see if he goes back on HRT. I speculate this is not going to be a lifelong thing where he's off forever. I imagine he will be back on sometime this year, I would think. But obviously, yeah, that's just me fucking guessing. I don't really know. So anyways, good to hear he's not brain dead, because that would be impossible to keep up. Like, I don't think people understand like how intensive of a process it is to try and do videos on a daily basis while concurrently doing consultations, business stuff, running your own company, doing all this shit. Like, it's mind-boggling how much stuff you have to juggle when it just seems like, he just sits on a couch and records videos. Like, it's fucking intense, dude. So the fact that he's still cranking these out, impressive. And we shall see what the update is next. I'm looking forward to, hopefully shit resolves itself, Like, I would hate to be off HRT indefinitely waiting for some fucking calcium to break itself up and like absorb. So anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplacemordates.com. Follow me on Instagram, @moreplace_more_dates. Facebook, Snapchat, BitChute, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. My TRT clinic. It's all telemedicine from the comfort of your own home. Gorilla Mind, nootropic formulas, Gorilla Mode, pre-workout formulas designed myself from scratch, and anything else I'm associated with, it's all in the video description below, as well as my recommended lab tests and diagnostics to stay on top of your health and whatnot. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.